Today on Powerpuff Month, we're going to take a look at the first set of video games of this series ever released to the public. The Game Boy games, specifically Bad Mojo Jojo, Paint the Townsville Green, and Battle Hymn. All three were developed by Sonaria Interactive and published by BAM Entertainment, with the first two released in 2000, while Battle Hymn was released a year later. You can kind of think of them as sisterly games since they're all actually identical. Just to show you why, I'm going to show all three games in action, but I'm mainly going to focus on just one of them, specifically Bad Mojo Jojo, just because Blossom's my favorite. In any case, once you start it up, you have a choice between 3 save slots, then afterwards you'll be dropped right into the menu. You'll also notice the music at first, which is not too bad being made on an 8-bit handheld. Starting a new game will greet you with a little backstory of the game, and then afterwards you'll be dropped right into the game itself. As you would expect, the game itself is a side-scrolling platformer. The object of the game is to make your way to the main antagonist of the game, in this case Mojo, and defeat him, all while beating up as much bad guys, rescuing as much hostages, and collecting as much stolen jewelry as possible along the way. Yep, that's all you do. Though the purpose of beating up all bad guys, rescuing all hostages, and collecting all stolen jewelry is to get 100% completion. On the top of the screen during gameplay, you'll see your number of lives, health, Chemical X, and flight power. There are also pink, green, and blue indicators as well, though I honestly can't find any purpose of these, so it's best to ignore them. Anyways, lives are what you would expect. Lose all of them and it's game over. Enough said. Also, do take note that if you die, you are brought back to the last checkpoint. Speaking of checkpoints, they are triggered after every dialogued event, so you'll be able to continue from there in case you need a break. Chemical X is the amount of special attacks that you can do. The availability of these Chemical X bottles are rather rare, so only conserve them for the more complex situations. Flight power basically indicates how longer you can fly in the air, and does recharge while you're on the ground. Though in all of honesty it makes no sense considering the reality of the show itself, though at the same time, it does add a little bit of gameplay to it. However, there are a couple of downsides with this game, one of them being the gameplay itself. Pulling off punches on bad guys is a bit of a pain due to the fact that your melee attacks are somewhat delayed, leaving you vulnerable to an enemy's attack. So you'll have to time your punches right in order to score a hit, and hope you don't get hit yourself. The next thing is the graphics. They are pretty much mediocre to say the least. The cutscene portraits themselves aren't too bad as well as the scenery in-game, but Blossom's portrayal in-game is kinda Even though the limitations of the Game Boy itself apply, I'd wish they could have done at least a bit better. Another thing to point out is the special attacks. Basically, you press B to perform the special attack, but then you have to press the D-pad in the desired direction to shoot it. Otherwise you'll lose the charge, potentially wasting your Chemical X bottles. A bit off with the controls if you ask me. One more thing to point out is that there are trading cards to collect throughout the level, which from what I understand can be traded between players via Game Link cable. Unfortunately, I don't have the opportunity to test it out and see how it works in its own right, and I suspect that it's just nothing more than just trading cards in between. Pretty cool to have though, even though it's of low quality because of it being on an 8-bit handheld. And that's pretty much the Game Boy games in a nutshell. It's just that simple. You go around beating bad guys, recover stolen jewelry, rescue hostages, and reach the end to beat the final boss. And that's it. Play again to get a higher score if you fail to get everything. And if you want more, there's also Paint the Townsville Green and Battle Hymn. PTG lets you take the role of Buttercup, where your objective is to find Ace and beat him to a pulp, while Battle Hymn lets you take the role of Bubbles, where your objective is to find him and send him back to his own place. So yeah, basically all three games are identical, aside from the story and portrayal. I honestly would see more enjoyment into these if the gameplay wasn't that complicated and if there was more content to them. But in all of honesty, they're actually not too bad of a game, though I can guarantee that they're probably not something to come back to as often. It's one of those simplistic set of games for PPG fans like myself that would be more suitable just to kill a few minutes of time, especially if you didn't have any other games on hand to play. So to keep it simple, if you're a fan of the Powerpuff Girls, and or just want to kill a small fraction of time on a simple game, then I'd say give the Game Boy games a try. But otherwise, I look into other games on the go, and if you want a slightly better PPG game, then go play Him and Seek. Want more Powerpuff stuff to brighten your day? Of course you do. Check out these videos before you, or subscribe to the hotline to be notified when to save the day. And be sure to tune in next week for more Powerpuff Girls games on Powerpuff Month, right here on DG Game Reviews. Thanks for watching.